Straight to the top story. It is the biggest proof of the fallibility of government's ambitious Aadhaar scheme. More than 200 central and state government websites reportedly displayed the personal details of Aadhaar users. A PTI report claims that the Unique Identification Authority of India has admitted to this massive data leak in response to an RTI query. The PTI report then goes on to say that the RTI response has said that the breach was identified and then that the data removed from these websites. Faye D'Souza, our executive editor, on the phone line. Faye, this is none other than state and central government websites who are putting out the data of Aadhaar users.
Well, Tanvi, as it indicates in the RTI story that has now come out, is there are 210 state and central websites that have perhaps not understood, like we've been saying on the channel for so long, not understood entirely the usage of Aadhaar or the sensitivity of the data that is being handled by various levels of government at this point. So everyone from any sort of public distribution, and as any citizen of this country widely knows, almost everybody's asking for your Aadhaar today. Almost everybody's asking for your details, whether it is school admissions, hospitals, all kinds of government offices, all kinds of private offices. Whether or not they understand how sensitive the data is and how they should be handling it, and at what level the data is being handled, at what level of seniority are these government officers handling the data, are questions that need to be asked, because the integrity of the database will depend on the government's ability to plug leaks like this. And we've seen this happen before. We've seen a website in Jharkhand, if I'm not mistaken, that put up scholarship details or other numbers of their scholars online, and there've been various other, on last count now, according to this RTI, 210 government websites that have displayed sensitive details on their websites for the public. So this could lead, and the dangers of this could be identity theft. If someone gets your Aadhaar details along with your bank account and your some of your other details, they can open accounts in your name. They could embezzle money in your name. There's so much that could happen. There's such a large danger.
Yes, and what is also interesting is not just the fact that this also indicates to us the fact that how easy is for anyone to really put out this data in the public domain, but the lack of understanding and the ignorance of the government authorities themselves. Now, if you could just stay on with me, we've also got Mr. Anupam Saraf, a petitioner who has already gone to court over the Aadhaar and its implementation or applicability. What is your reaction to this big admission? Now, we've repeatedly spoken about data breach and data leaks, but here are government websites that are actually sharing names, places, address, Aadhaar numbers, everything on their websites. Anupam Saraf?
Hello.
Yes, my question to you, what is your view on what has just come out now and been actually, it's a big admission from the Aadhaar authority itself to say, yes, about 210 government websites had made the Aadhaar data public. We've removed it now. But at one point, clearly it was out there for anybody to see.
So, there are 2 points here. I think the first is that the government, the UIDAI, has no clue about its own Aadhaar Act. Under the Aadhaar Act, the only way Aadhaar number can be used is to authenticate a person. It does not allow for storing any Aadhaar number. However, what the UIDAI is doing is it's actually allowing people to get the information, including the Aadhaar number, back when Aadhaar database is queried. And that is why government departments automatically store all the information on their website. And as long as the UIDAI does not stop sending the Aadhaar number back, this is going to happen again and again and again. And therefore, the prime person responsible for this is the UIDAI. So that's, I think, point number one. The second is that the Supreme Court had very categorically restricted the use of Aadhaar for only 5 schemes, and to allow the query of Aadhaar beyond these 5 schemes and allowing people to actually access the database for any whatsoever is completely beyond what has been permitted by the Supreme Court of India and is complete contempt of the Supreme Court. So I think on both these counts, the UIDAI is, at fault, and I think the government needs to wake up to the point that the UIDAI itself is not able to handle the Aadhaar data. And,
but Mr. Saraf, these are government websites. According to the PTI report that says that UIDAI has responded to an RTI query, these 210 websites are actually central and state government websites. So if they themselves aren't aware of what is the law, then what can we expect about data protection and keeping our details private?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are seeing this violation because these are government websites where there is usually, websites are not really monitored by the government officials, but they are contracted out, and anything written by the UIDAI's query is put up onto the government website. When a private party queries it, it's not making these queries public. But this data would very well be stored with private parties. And when it is stored with private parties, we would not know of the breach and of any misuse till such time that somebody's identity is stolen or transactions which are, fake transactions which are carried out in their name and somebody actually launches an investigation. So I think what we are seeing as...
Anupam Saraf, we also have Ritesh Bhatia on the phone line right now, and you're so right about the fact that unless we have indication of the full length of the danger of something like this, we won't have the kind of reaction that we ought to have to this sort of leakage. And the thing that concerns me most of all is that even if there is data theft, even if there is identity theft, none of us as citizens have the authority to file a complaint on our own. We have to wait for the UIDAI to file a complaint because that's what the Aadhaar Act specifies. But I just want to understand from Ritesh Bhatia, 210 government websites, state and center, having uploaded details of Aadhaar numbers onto the websites according to an RTI that's come out of the UIDAI right now. What is the danger of this sort of public display of information?
Firstly, Tanvi, Mirror Now has always highlighted the dangers of these data breaches, and now the RTI itself shows that when 210 websites are displaying this, then how dangerous, as you're asking me, it can be. It's all about identity theft. Now, using this identity theft, people can just make fake cards, they can forge their cards, they can do a lot of frauds, and these are already happening. More importantly, Tanvi, what's happening is that it's just not these government websites, but now just see the dangers wherein we are giving our Aadhaar number even to the telcos and even to the banks. Let me tell you, certain telcos and banks are just not prepared as such. And these guys, whenever we go and we are linking it, they have access to all our information then. It's not except for biometrics. Now, biometrics is not a really big thing. Anyway, it's not something that's ageless and immortal. But the fact is, just with the number itself and the name and the date of birth, a lot of identity theft, a lot of identity theft frauds can be carried out. More importantly, Tanvi, I would want to add to it that the UIDAI says that, nothing is happening from its end. From its end, if you see the report, it says that, no, we are fully secure. Fine, but then you are a part of the government. These websites are also part of the government. Whenever you are handing it over, you got to ensure that there is privacy by design, there is security by design to whichever organization you are handing over. And also under the Section 29 and subsection 4, these people are liable for a huge penalty, but there is no penalty happening. I feel till the time there will be no penalty put up on these people, they are not going to learn their lessons. Tanvi?
Absolutely, Ritesh. And like Faye was pointing out, the other big question is, so who will take this action? Let me take that question across to Anupam Saraf. Anupam Saraf, like Faye was pointing out, in most cases, it is the UIDAI that has to act. Only they have the power under the law to take any action. But in this case, clearly they've just admitted that they got the data removed and that's it. Shouldn't these institutions and government departments be penalized?
Yes, absolutely. Not only the government departments, I think basically this points out to the biggest lacuna that there is no oversight over the UIDAI itself. In this case, as in many other cases, it is actually the fault of the UIDAI. However, there is no oversight body. There is no body which can actually take action against the UIDAI. And it's essential that if the UIDAI itself does not follow its own act, that there needs to be an urgent disbanding of the UIDAI. Because it is not able to protect the data, it is not able to make sure that it is used in the right fashion, it is not able to ensure that the Aadhaar number is not returned with an eKYC query made by any partner organization. It is important that, the UIDAI has to definite, and if it can't actually make sure that Supreme Court orders are followed, it doesn't understand the law. It doesn't understand what is the rule of law in the country. And I think far more important than using an Aadhaar number is to ensure that the country does not become lawless. It does not become something which is run on an ad hoc 12-digit number and violates the identity of people.
Yes, and here we are sitting and discussing, for all of this time about data breach and, and it also becoming an issue of national security, like Subramanian Swamy says, because we don't know how many international firms may have had access to this data. But it's as plain and simple. The world could have seen this data on these 210 websites. And once it is out there, even if the websites have removed it, by now, we don't know how many have picked it up and replicated it. Here on Mirror Now, we've shown examples of a couple of websites that do have data of thousands of people, their Aadhaar details, their PAN card and voter ID details. So what happens? Where is the damage control now that the government should be looking into? That is the next big question. Ritesh Bhatia and Anupam Saraf, thank you for joining us. Faye D'Souza, thank you for also joining us here on this big story. A big Mirror Now campaign as we continue to question why government is pushing Aadhaar and asking us to link it to every part of our life if this is the level of security that the platform has.